Be me, Alexandra, 34, Senior Director of Engineering Operations at one of the biggest tech companies in Silicon Valley. Worked my ass off for 12 years to get here. Started as a junior developer, dealt with countless microaggressions and condescending comments. Remember being the only woman in most meetings, having my ideas credited to male colleagues. Finally made it to the top, and now I have real power to make changes. This is my chance to fix the systemic problems I experienced. 6 months ago, get directive from CEO about accelerating our DEI initiatives. Board is breathing down his neck about our diversity metrics. Only 23% women in engineering, pathetic representation of other underrepresented groups. I know this is my moment to make real change. Start reviewing performance data of my engineering teams. Notice that our most senior male engineers, while technically competent, haven't been mentoring junior staff effectively. Perfect opportunity to restructure. Identify 15 senior male engineers across 3 different teams. Robert, David, Michael, James, William, Thomas, Joseph, Christopher, Daniel, Matthew, Anthony, Mark, Stephen, Paul, Kenneth. These guys have been here 8 to 15 years each, making $180,000 to $220,000 annually. They're comfortable, set in their ways, probably part of the old boys club. Start building cases for performance improvement plans. Focus on collaboration metrics, inclusive leadership scores, cultural fit evaluations. Document every instance where they failed to elevate diverse voices in meetings. Begin the process methodically. Call Robert into my office first. He's the most senior at 15 years. Robert, we need to discuss some concerns about your leadership approach. He looks confused, starts rattling off his technical achievements. This isn't about your code quality, it's about how you're not creating an inclusive environment for your team members. Explain that his habit of immediately jumping into technical solutions during brainstorming sessions shuts down other perspectives. Put him on a 90-day improvement plan focused on inclusive leadership training. Robert gets defensive immediately. Alexandra, I've been here since before you even knew what a compiler was. I've mentored dozens of developers, including several women on my team. Can see the frustration building in his voice. This feels like you're manufacturing problems where none exist. Remain calm and professional. Robert, this isn't personal. It's about evolving our leadership standards to match our company values. Over the next 3 months, systematically move through all 15 targets. Each conversation follows a similar pattern. Present them with improvement plans focused on soft skills, cultural awareness, inclusive leadership. Most of them struggle with the new metrics I'm using to evaluate their performance. They're used to being judged solely on technical output. Keep detailed documentation of every interaction, every missed goal on their improvement plans. David comes to my office in week 4, clearly agitated. Alexandra, what exactly are you trying to accomplish here? Half my team is spending more time in sensitivity training than actually coding. Our sprint velocity has dropped 30% since you implemented these new requirements. Stay focused on the bigger picture. David, we're building a more sustainable and equitable workplace. Short-term productivity dips are worth the long-term cultural improvements. He slams his hand on my desk. Cultural improvements? Alexandra, we're an engineering company, not a social experiment. I have a mortgage, kids in college. I've invested my entire career here. These new metrics you're using don't reflect actual job performance. Can see he's genuinely distressed, but hold firm. David, adapting to evolving workplace standards is part of professional growth. If you can't meet these expectations, maybe this role isn't the right fit anymore. By month 3, have documented sufficient performance gaps for all 15 targets. Work with HR to begin transition planning. Simultaneously, start recruiting process for their replacements. Prioritize candidates from underrepresented backgrounds. Find amazing talent through diversity recruiting programs and partnerships with HBCUs. Hire brilliant women like Jasmine, Priya, and Aisha. Bring in talented Latino engineers like Carlos and Diego. Recruit exceptional Black developers like Marcus and Terrell. The day I announce the first round of departures, Michael confronts me in the hallway. Alexandra, you're destroying this company's institutional knowledge. Robert built our entire authentication system. David designed our core database architecture. You're throwing away decades of experience for what? Diversity points? Feel my conviction wavering for a moment, but push through. Michael, no one is irreplaceable, and we need fresh perspectives to innovate. These new hires bring different approaches that will ultimately make us stronger. He gets increasingly animated. Different approaches? Alexandra, they don't even understand our existing code base. I spent 3 hours yesterday explaining basic concepts to one of your diversity hires. This isn't about innovation, it's about ideology. Try to remain diplomatic. Michael, there's always a learning curve with new team members. Give them time to ramp up and contribute their unique strengths. As the departures continue, the confrontations become more frequent and intense. James corners me after a team meeting in week 6. Alexandra, I know what you're doing, and so does everyone else. You're systematically removing experienced engineers who don't fit your political agenda. This isn't about performance, it's about demographics. Feel defensive, but maintain professional composure. James, that's a serious accusation and completely unfounded. Every decision has been based on documented performance gaps and cultural fit issues. He laughs bitterly. Cultural fit? I've been contributing to this culture for 12 years. I've shipped products that generated millions in revenue. Now suddenly, I'm not a cultural fit because I'm a white male? The conversation gets heated quickly. James, your technical contributions are acknowledged, but leadership requires more than individual achievement. It requires elevating others and creating inclusive environments. Elevating others? Alexandra, I've trained half the junior developers in this company, including 3 women who are now senior engineers thanks to my mentorship. But that doesn't count because it doesn't fit your narrative. Starting to feel genuinely upset by his accusations. James, this isn't about narratives. It's about building a more equitable workplace. Sometimes that requires difficult decisions. By month 4, the reality of the situation starts becoming apparent. Our new hires are struggling more than I anticipated. Jasmine, despite her impressive academic credentials, needs extensive support with our legacy systems. Carlos keeps making architectural decisions that conflict with our established patterns. Aisha's code reviews are taking twice as long because she's still learning our standards. Try to stay optimistic and provide additional resources. Arrange for intensive mentoring programs. Bring in external consultants to help with knowledge transfer. Tell myself this is just normal onboarding challenges. Remind everyone that diversity of thought leads to better outcomes. The research clearly supports this, even if the immediate results aren't obvious. William confronts me in the parking garage after a particularly difficult team meeting. Alexandra, our authentication system went down 3 times this week. Robert designed that system. Robert maintained that system. Robert understood every edge case. Now we're scrambling to reverse engineer our own infrastructure. Try to project confidence despite my growing concerns. William, this is exactly why we needed to diversify our knowledge base. Having critical systems dependent on one person was always a risk. He becomes visibly frustrated. A risk? Alexandra, that's revisionist history, and you know it. Robert documented everything. He trained multiple people on that system. The problem isn't knowledge transfer, it's that his replacement doesn't have the experience to handle complex issues. Feel defensive about my hiring decisions. William, Marcus is exceptionally talented and just needs time to familiarize himself with our specific implementation. Sometimes fresh eyes can identify improvements that experts miss. Fresh eyes. Alexandra, our customers don't care about fresh eyes when their data is compromised. We've lost 2 major clients this month because of system instabilities. How is that advancing? Your diversity goals? The weight of his words hits harder than expected. William, there are always challenges during transitions. We need to focus on supporting our new team members rather than undermining them. Week by week, the problems compound. Our core payment processing system starts having intermittent failures. Thomas had maintained that system for 8 years, knew every quirk and optimization. Priya is brilliant, but needs weeks to understand the complexity he handled instinctively. Customer complaints increase dramatically. Other department heads start asking pointed questions about our reliability issues. Anthony finds me in the break room during my lunch break. Alexandra, I need to talk to you about the data pipeline failures. We've had 7 major incidents this month, each one traced back to changes made by inexperienced engineers. Joseph spent 3 years optimizing that pipeline. It was rock solid before you forced him out. Feel exhausted from these constant confrontations. Anthony, Joseph was resistant to modernization and inclusive practices. These growing pains are temporary while we build a more sustainable team structure. His voice rises with frustration. Sustainable? Alexandra, we're hemorrhaging money and reputation. Our deployment success rate has dropped from 96% to 73% in 4 months. How is that sustainable for anyone, regardless of their background? Try to maintain confidence in my decisions. Anthony, metrics can be misleading during transition periods. We're investing in long-term cultural improvements that will pay dividends. Cultural improvements? Alexandra, Diego accidentally deleted our entire staging environment last week. It took us 48 hours to rebuild what Christopher could restore in 20 minutes. This isn't about culture, it's about competence. Feel personally attacked and respond more emotionally than intended. Anthony, that's an isolated incident, and you're using it to justify your resistance to change. Diego is learning our systems and deserves support, not constant criticism. Month 5 brings the breaking point. Our flagship mobile application experiences a critical security vulnerability. The exploit gets discovered by external researchers and goes public. Major tech blogs pick up the story about our security failures. Stock price drops 12% in 2 days. CEO calls emergency meeting with all senior leadership, sitting in that conference room watching our chief technology officer explain the timeline of failures. Each incident traced back to insufficient expertise in maintaining our complex systems. Realize that Mark, Stephen, Paul, and Kenneth collectively had 43 years of experience with our specific architecture. Their replacements, despite being talented individuals, lack the institutional knowledge to prevent these issues. After the meeting, Christopher approaches me in the hallway. This is the first time he's spoken to me since his departure was announced. Alexandra, I heard about the security breach. I know exactly which configuration caused that vulnerability. I fixed that same issue 3 times over the past 5 years. Feel a crushing sense of responsibility. Christopher, I'm sorry this happened, but we can't dwell on past approaches. We need to focus on building robust systems that don't depend on individual knowledge. He looks at me with a mixture of sadness and anger. Alexandra, you still don't understand what you've done. This isn't about individual knowledge, it's about experience and expertise. You can't shortcut years of learning by hiring smart people with different backgrounds. Technical competence doesn't have a gender or race, but inexperience does have consequences. Feel tears forming, but maintain professional composure. Christopher, I believe in the potential of our new team members. They just need time and support to reach their full capabilities. Time? Alexandra, how much time do we have before the next security breach? How many more clients will we lose while your social experiment plays out? You've sacrificed the careers of 15 experienced professionals for an ideology that's destroying the company. His words cut deeper than any previous confrontation. Christopher, calling it a social experiment is unfair and reductive. I'm trying to build a more inclusive and equitable workplace. Inclusive? Alexandra, you excluded 15 people based solely on their demographics. You destroyed careers, broke up teams that worked well together, dismantled institutional knowledge. How is that inclusive for anyone except the people who fit your preferred categories? Feel overwhelmed by the weight of his accusations. Christopher, those decisions were based on performance evaluations and cultural fit assessments. I followed proper procedures and worked with HR throughout the process. He shakes his head sadly. Alexandra, you know that's not true. You reverse-engineered justifications for predetermined conclusions. We all performed well by every metric that mattered until you changed the criteria. You measured us against standards that had nothing to do with our actual jobs. Realize I don't have a good response to his points. Christopher, workplace expectations evolve, and adaptation is part of professional growth. Month 6 becomes my personal nightmare, watching brilliant people like Jasmine, Marcus, and Terrell struggle with systems beyond their current expertise. They work incredibly hard, stay late, ask thoughtful questions, but the gap between their potential and our immediate needs becomes impossible to ignore. 3 more major clients terminate their contracts, citing reliability concerns. The board schedules a comprehensive review of our engineering operations. Daniel, who was forced out in month 2, shows up at my office unexpectedly. Alexandra, I heard about the board review. I wanted to give you one last chance to acknowledge what's really happening here. Feel defensive and emotionally exhausted. Daniel, I don't owe you any explanations. Your departure was handled according to company policy and HR guidelines. He sits down across from my desk despite not being invited. Alexandra, forget the policies and guidelines for a moment. Look at the actual results of your decisions. Are our systems more reliable? Are our customers happier? Are our teams more productive? Is the company stronger because you removed experienced engineers? Struggle to formulate a response that addresses his questions directly. Daniel, change is difficult and results take time to materialize. We're building a foundation for long-term success. Long-term success. Alexandra, at what cost? Matthew had to sell his house because he couldn't find another position at his salary level. Paul's kids had to transfer schools because he lost his healthcare during the job transition. Kenneth's wife is undergoing cancer treatment and you destroyed their financial stability. Feel genuinely awful hearing about their personal struggles. Daniel, I'm sorry about their difficulties, but business decisions sometimes have personal impacts. That doesn't make the decisions wrong if they serve the greater good. His voice becomes filled with raw emotion. Greater good? Alexandra, who's greater good? The customers who are losing data? The shareholders who are losing money? The employees who are losing faith in leadership? Or just your personal sense of moral superiority? Feel attacked and respond defensively. Daniel, you're oversimplifying a complex situation. Building inclusive workplaces requires difficult transitions that don't always produce immediate benefits. Inclusive workplaces, Alexandra, you've created the most divisive environment this company has ever seen. People are afraid to speak honestly about performance issues. Teams are walking on eggshells around new hires who can't do the job. You've turned workplace collaboration into a political minefield. Realize there's truth in his observations but can't admit it openly. Daniel, change always creates temporary discomfort. We're working through these challenges and will emerge stronger. The final confrontation happens 3 weeks later. All 15 displaced engineers request a joint meeting with me and HR. Initially resist the meeting, but HR insists it's necessary for legal compliance. Walking into that conference room feels like facing a tribunal. See Robert, David, Michael, James, William, Thomas, Joseph, Christopher, Daniel, Matthew, Anthony, Mark, Stephen, Paul, Kenneth. They've prepared a comprehensive presentation about the impact of my decisions. Robert starts by presenting technical metrics. System reliability down 34%, customer satisfaction down 28%, deployment success rate down 23%. Average time to resolve incidents increased 67%. Knowledge transfer failures documented in 43 separate instances. Feel overwhelmed by the data, but maintain outward composure. Robert, metrics during transition periods don't reflect long-term outcomes. We're building capabilities that will ultimately exceed previous performance levels. David follows with financial impact analysis. Customer contract cancellations totaling $23 million in annual revenue. Security incident response costs exceeding $2.8 million. Recruitment and training expenses for new hires approaching $1.1 million. Projected timeline for new hires to reach full productivity, 18 to 24 months. Try to contextualize the numbers. David, financial investments in cultural transformation often require upfront costs. The return on investment includes improved innovation and reduced turnover among underrepresented groups. Michael presents the Human Impact Assessment, documentation of personal hardships experienced by displaced engineers, career disruption, financial stress, family impacts, professional reputation damage. Average time to find equivalent employment, 7 months. Average salary reduction in new positions, 18%. Feel genuinely heartbroken hearing about their struggles. Michael, I understand these transitions have been difficult. But systemic change sometimes requires individual sacrifices for collective progress. James stands up and addresses me directly. Alexandra, we've presented the technical failures, financial losses, and human costs. Can you present any concrete evidence that your decisions have benefited anyone? Show us improved innovation, better team dynamics, enhanced customer satisfaction. Demonstrate any positive outcome that justifies what you've done. Realize I don't have compelling evidence of success to present. James, cultural transformation isn't immediately measurable through traditional metrics. We're creating an environment where diverse perspectives can flourish. William interrupts with visible frustration. Diverse perspectives? Alexandra, you've created an environment of fear and incompetence. People are afraid to provide honest feedback about performance. Teams are struggling with basic tasks that used to be routine. You've prioritized demographic representation over actual capability. Feel increasingly defensive despite recognizing the validity of his points. William, capability develops over time with proper support and mentoring. We're committed to helping our new team members reach their full potential. Thomas stands and speaks with controlled anger. Alexandra, your commitment to their potential is destroying our present reality. While you wait for them to develop capabilities, our systems are failing. While you provide them with support and mentoring, our customers are leaving. While you prioritize their growth, the company is bleeding money and reputation. Feel the weight of responsibility crushing down. Thomas, building inclusive teams requires patience and investment. short-term challenges are worth enduring for long-term benefits. Joseph approaches the whiteboard and writes out a simple equation. Alexandra, let me make this as clear as possible. 15 experienced engineers producing reliable results, replaced by 15 inexperienced engineers producing unreliable results, equals 1 failed diversity initiative disguised as progress. Try to respond, but words don't come easily. Joseph, that's an oversimplification that ignores the complex factors involved. Christopher stands up and faces me directly. Alexandra, we're going to ask you one final question. Knowing what you know now about the results of your decisions, would you make the same choices again? Feel cornered and emotionally overwhelmed? Christopher, I believe in the importance of creating equitable workplaces. Progress sometimes requires difficult decisions that aren't immediately popular. Daniel shakes his head. Alexandra, that's not an answer, that's a deflection. We're asking about results, not intentions. We're asking about outcomes, not ideology. Would you destroy 15 careers and damage the company again for these results? Feel tears forming, but fight to maintain composure. Daniel, I stand by my commitment to diversity and inclusion. Building equitable workplaces is worth the challenges we're experiencing. The room falls silent for a long moment. Robert finally speaks. Alexandra, your commitment to diversity might be genuine, but your execution has been a disaster for everyone involved, including the people you thought you were helping. Our new colleagues are set up to fail in an environment beyond their current capabilities. You've created a situation where everyone loses. Feel completely overwhelmed by the truth in his words. Watching these new employees struggle despite their best efforts. Seeing the company suffer through preventable failures. Recognizing the personal costs imposed on experienced professionals. Knowing that my ideological commitment has created practical disasters, but still unable to publicly acknowledge the failures. Robert, I appreciate your perspective, but I can't abandon my principles. Sometimes leadership requires making unpopular decisions for the greater good. They file out of the conference room one by one, leaving me alone with the crushing weight of reality. Spent the last 6 months defending decisions that have objectively failed, destroyed careers, damaged the company, hurt the people I thought I was helping. But admitting failure feels like betraying everything I believe about justice and equality. Continue publicly defending my choices while privately watching everything collapse. Knowing that my ideological certainty has created a disaster I can't fix, but unable to acknowledge the truth because it would undermine everything I've worked for. Trapped between my principles and the devastating reality they've created.